Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with Storm Cunningham, author of 3 books and executive director of the Reconomics Institute. Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. And with
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Storm Cunningham, and he is the author of 3 books, executive director of Reconomics Institute. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, glad to be here, Roy and Lori.
Oh, before we start, thank you for your service. I see you were a Green Beret.
many moons ago.
Well, that's thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us what Reconomics actually is, or how do you define that?
It's basically the study of how places come back to life, how they revitalize when you base that revitalization on the repurposing and renewing and reconnecting of the area's natural and built and socio-economic assets. That's as opposed to trying to grow economically just by sprawl or by extracting virgin resources or some other way that doesn't really work in the long run.
Well, I know here in Dallas back in the 70s, in an area of downtown, it was kind of like a warehouse district. Mm-hmm. They revitalized that to a lot of shops, restaurants, and stuff. It was a real popular place back in the late 70s, probably through the 80s. And then towards about the mid 90s, it kind of, that part of it died out. And now they've moved that into condos. They've turned all those old warehouses into condos.
Yeah, that's probably smart because there's just been so many examples over the last few decades of places that have tried to revitalize just by bringing in offices and restaurants and stores, and totally forgetting that they can't survive without customers. So you got to get the people living downtown if you want to have a really healthy downtown.
Well, I know here in Dallas, I can remember being a kid when they were always talking about New York City and all, and in San Francisco started building their BART rail system, their subway system.
Right.
And I can remember all my aunts and uncles. We're not ever having anything like that in Dallas. We're not going to get into that. Well, we do have a transit system now. It's not a subway, but we do have a mass transit system. And we're seeing in a lot of the office buildings downtown, they're being turned into condos. Yep. Because there's such a glut of office space here. And now since COVID, more people are working at home. They've really got a lot of extra shopping centers, strip malls, and buildings. And they've discovered, especially downtown, that turning them into condos has been extremely profitable.
Yeah, and that gets back to the strategy I mentioned earlier, repurposing, renewing, reconnecting. It's the single most powerful, reliably successful revitalization strategy on the planet. It's just 3 words. You find some asset, whether it's natural or built or socioeconomic, you find some new purpose for it that is viable. Once you've got that viable new purpose, once you've repurposed it, then you can raise the money you need to renew it. And once you've renewed it, you usually need to reconnect it. It might be a farm that was disconnected from the ecosystem. It might have been a shopping mall that was disconnected from the neighborhood by acres and acres of parking lots or whatever. So those 3 things, repurpose the asset, renew the asset, reconnect the asset, that is the surefire path to revitalizing properties, neighborhoods, entire cities.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed that the millennials, what they want a place where they can have like shopping on the bottom floor and then condos on the second or up, to live. They want to be able to walk to work, walk to shopping, or ride a bicycle.
Yep.
And we've got a section of downtown that is pretty much, that's what they've done. They call it uptown. Right. And that's pretty much what they've done. And there's tons of millennials that live there.
And there's nothing new about that. That's the traditional way cities were built in Europe for centuries. People would live above their stores, and there was no artificial separation of business and commerce and manufacturing, and all that stuff was right there in the same neighborhood. Live, work, play.
Yeah, well, that's what the new developments they're doing. That's the concept for the new developments that they're putting in around town, where we have tons of apartments being built everywhere. I mean, they're just, if there's a big open property, it's apartments, and we're bringing in so many people. But the problem is you're bringing in so many more cars too.
Right.
Our roads are just, they're under constant construction. And by the time they widen them and improve them, they're already out of date.
Yeah, well, I actually live in Arlington County, Virginia, right across the river from Washington, D.C. And this was the birthplace of what they call the smart growth movement, where the federal government was going to run a freeway through, a transit system, metro system through the county. And they were going to run it right down the middle of the I-66 freeway. And the Arlington County folks said, how's that going to do us any good? You know, run it through here and here and here. And they identified like half a dozen emerging neighborhoods. And they say, look, if you put a transit stop in each one of these, then we can concentrate all of our new development, all of our new residential buildings right around that transit stop. And that's what's happened. Arlington now has half a dozen downtowns, each of them thriving, and virtually no traffic problems at all, because almost everybody in Arlington County lives within walking distance of a metro stop.
Yeah, I took my son up to Washington, D.C. and when he was a senior in college, high school, for a senior showcase soccer tournament. And we stayed right across, I guess somewhere in Virginia, I can't remember, and we took the metro, and it was really nice.
Yep.
Clean. It was, of course, this was like in the 90s, but still, it was very nice.
Yep.
I thought very well laid out.
Yep. Yeah, back then we had the only metro system in the country with carpets, which we came to regret.
Yeah, a lot of wear and tear.
And sometimes though, with that connect, you can even have two cities that it's worthwhile for them connecting, but if they're rivals to each other, the politicians don't want to do anything about it. Let's say like whether it's a transit to go to one, we have two cities side by side, and they're only like 15-20 minutes going straight down. But we have to go all the way to Toronto to get to the city that's 15 to 20 minutes down, because the two cities are refusing to put a joint transit there. That's planning. I was on the transportation committee 2000 to 2003. And I'm telling you, it's 20 years later and nothing really has changed much. Like, it's scary.
Yeah, well, no, don't feel bad. We've got the same problem down here. For every Arlington County, there are 100 that just can't figure out how to do something intelligent.
Well, the suburb I live in, when I first moved here, Dallas had their transit systems called DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And so they were going to bring buses, city buses here, and the people voted against it. Well, then they were going to have alcohol here for the restaurants. They voted against that. So now our city's dying because they have no tax revenue, because all the businesses are moving to other suburbs that have those things. So,
yep.
And we're suffering for it.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble. Most communities really don't have any kind of revitalization process. There's no real ongoing program there so that everybody can get their say. But also at the same time be educated as to what exactly it takes to revitalize a place, so they don't make these decisions just on the spur of the moment, not realizing that they're undermining 10 other things that they want just to get this one thing they want.
Yeah. They're having a hard time bringing businesses here. Because our city's basically dead, because there's not that much shopping. We had a mall that was built in the 70s. It shut down, and now they're revitalizing it. It's retail, restaurants, apartments, and they've got a waiting list to people to move in there. Which was a smart move.
Yeah, and that's another example of the lack of an ongoing revitalization program. Is a place can have a lot of really good projects. I know you've got that. What's the name of that park downtown where they covered up the freeway?
Yeah, Clyde Warren Park.
Yeah, Clyde Warren Park. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a really smart thing to do. That was, you're way ahead of the country there. Since then, dozens of cities have been covering up their freeways and creating parks out of them. But Dallas was one of the first. And that was a really smart thing to do. But the trouble was like that and the mall redevelopment and all the other good things you've done around the city have all been isolated projects. And revitalization is something that happens to a living system. It emerges from a complex system. And that's what a city is. It's a living, complex system. And to get that revitalization, that this whole new quality, this whole new trajectory to emerge from the system, you can't just treat it like an automobile engine, replacing this part here, fixing that part there. You got to treat it like a living system and have an ongoing process of regenerating your natural and built and socioeconomic assets and get out of this stop, start, project by project mode.
Yeah, you're talking about that park. They're widening Interstate 35 from downtown going south, and it's been going on for about 3 or 4 years. But the Dallas Zoo is in that part of town, and they're talking about putting a park there, going over the freeway there and building another Clyde Warren type park there.
Right.
Now, a lot of people are resisting it, so I don't know if it's ever going to get done or not, but they're considering doing that.
Are they resisting the park or are they resisting the widening of the freeway?
No, the freeway is happening. Nobody's going to resist that. The traffic's so bad, but the park, they don't want the park there. A lot of people are fighting having the park there. I don't know why, but they are. So, I guess like you say, there's a lot of good things going on and pieces and parts here and there, but not collectively. It appears that way.
It's hard to build any kind of momentum when you don't have an ongoing program that captures, acts as a flywheel that captures a momentum from each successful project and makes the next project easier. When you have to start from scratch each time you're going to do something major, it's just a tremendous amount of wasted energy.
So you've authored 3 books. You wanted to give us an overview of those books, and collectively have they moved one to the other?
The first one I started writing in 1996, The Restoration Economy, and that was the year after the EPA created their Brownfields Initiative, which is probably the single most successful and efficient federal government program ever created in this country. It's got a minimum of 14-to-1 ROI, and some places like up in Minneapolis documented a 44-to-1 ROI. For every public dollar that goes into the Brownfields program, they generate 44 actually private dollars. So, it's just this incredibly intelligent program. And so I started researching that first book, The Restoration Economy, partly from what I was seeing coming out of the EPA, but also because I had been involved in some ecological restoration projects and suddenly realized that, we don't have to be satisfied with just slowing down the rate at which we're destroying the planet, which is what most conservation and greens and sustainability stuff is all about is, let's waste less, let's poison less, let's sprawl less. And I realized that you can actually make just as much money, if not more, by undoing existing damage, by cleaning up the brownfields, by restoring historic buildings, renewing the infrastructure. And that's when that's how that book came out. And I documented all these different fast-growing industries that were coming about that were restoring our natural and built and social and economic environments. The second book was, the first book was kind of like the ingredients of revitalization, all the kinds of regenerative projects you can do. Second book, Rewealth, came out from McGraw-Hill in 2008. And that was more about the recipe for those ingredients. How do you put them all together to get what people really want, which is economic growth and higher quality of life and all those things that we call revitalization. And I had a bunch of case studies in there of places that had come back to life in a dramatic way. But I really hadn't quite, I gave the case studies, but I hadn't really figured out what's the process here? What's replicable? What's always missing in the failures? What's always present in the successes? And that's what the third book, Reconomics, was about, that came out last year, actually 2020, so year before last now. And that's about the fact that there is an actual revitalization process. Everything has a process. Everybody knows that to reliably produce something, you need to have a process. Doesn't matter whether you're manufacturing cars or peanut butter or clothes or whatever. If you're going to reliably produce something, you got to have a process. And the only people who don't seem to know that are the ones who run cities and regions who are trying to revitalize the place. That's where you see what Roy was talking about, all these individual projects, but no actual process to produce the end result of revitalization or resilience.
Yeah. Well, there's so much out there that could be revitalized.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Yep. Whole planet.
I know we were in Portland, Maine several years ago on vacation, and we asked a guy a good place to eat. She says, well, there's a place, it's down on the docks. They call it the warehouse district. And they did the same thing. They went in and revitalized this big, long dock. And it was all shops, restaurants. And we were there. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. People were out, going to the restaurants, walking down to the shops. And we had dinner on a tugboat that had been converted into a restaurant.
Yep.
There. It was really nice, but I thought they did a really good job on that.
Yeah, they do. The problem is that what happens is a community will have a success like that, and other communities all around the state or even around the country will hear about it, and they'll say, what did you do there? We're going to do the same thing here. And it's not always appropriate to do the same thing here.
Yeah.
So, I've seen places that had really wonderful working waterfronts, fishing industry and all kinds of stuff that was actually happening. People are earning their living on the waterfront. And these city leaders would come in, the planners, and just say, oh, we got to get rid of all that dirty, noisy stuff and just put in shops and restaurants and tourist stuff. That's all we need is tourists. And it didn't work. Because in actual fact, tourists love working waterfronts. They love to see people actually going about their living off of the ocean or the river. And, you can get burned out on, tourist places that all end up looking the same after a while. So you got to have a strategy. You got to look at what do you actually have here that can be renewed? What do you need to keep? And it's not just a matter of replacing, renewing, repurposing everything. Places usually have something they really need to keep in order to keep their heritage or their personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who do you think, how's the best way to get something like that started, in your opinion?
That's actually the whole focus of Reconomics Institute, is to make this stuff easy. I've been studying it now for 2 decades. And it took me a long time to realize what was really behind the spectacular successes I was seeing, and to distill it into a process. And the fact is, most places already have most of the pieces of that process in place. Just intuitively, they know that there are certain things they should be doing. Trouble is that a process that's got a missing piece or two is not a process. So a car without a transmission is not going anywhere, no matter how good the rest of the car is. So what we're doing at Reconomics Institute is training what we call revitalization and resilience facilitators. These are people who, they might be doing it as a volunteer, just as a labor of love. They could be elected officials, could be in the administration somewhere or running a nonprofit. Doesn't really matter where they are in the community, but you got to have somebody in the community who understands the strategic process for creating revitalization and resilience. So we certify these people at reconomics.org.
Oh, okay.
To say that, you would think that there's one thing having all of this put together, but really it would take either one person or a team of 2 or 3 to really put it together properly to propose it.
Oh yeah, this revitalization resilience facilitator isn't actually doing this stuff. That's why they're called facilitators.
Right.
They're facilitating all of the other people, the real estate developers, the business owners, property owners, the leaders, the nonprofits, everybody who's involved in revitalizing the place. They're just basically plugging the gaps, saying, look, we got this, but we need to plug that gap there and that gap there in order to have a complete revitalization process that will actually reliably produce success.
Yeah, so for example, say the city planning commission decides we're going to take this area and do this, your facilitator might be able to say, well, you could do that. However, it would be better if you did this over here, and this is why.
Yeah, or it might just be a matter of timing. They might say, yes, that's a great idea, but it'll work a lot better if you renew this area here first. And then that other project won't be sitting in isolation. Now it'll be connected to the city. So you got to have somebody who's looking at the connections, looking at the flow.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The 30,000-foot view.
Yep.
So to speak.
So I'm curious. So you were a distinguished visiting professor at Seneca College, which is here in Canada.
No, not anymore. That was a 4 or 5 year gig.
But you were. Was that,
Yeah.
were you speaking similarly to this subject, or what were you?
Yeah, I hadn't really clarified all of my thinking on this back then. That was like 15 years ago. So that's, I'm a lot clearer about the process now than I was then, but I was focusing on all of the various types of projects that go into revitalizing a place. So one time I'd go up there for a week every quarter, and they didn't just have me teaching on campus. They sent me around as kind of a emissary from Seneca College all over the GTA, basically helping government agencies and nonprofits and communities think through all of the restorable assets that they have. Because a lot of times these places were sitting on absolute gold mines that could be revitalized, but they saw them as just derelict places. They saw them as what's in the way of revitalization. And usually after I got done talking with them, they realized, no, those are the ingredients of revitalization. They're not barriers to revitalization.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you were the consultants that helped them really see what they had.
Yeah, a lot of it's just kind of awareness building, helping people get out of the old mindset that everything, if you're going to grow your economy, it's all based on new stuff, and realizing that they've got tons of existing assets that in most cases can add much more to the economy, and do so in a way that create a healthier, more robust community. A lot of places have killed their downtowns by sprawling without any kind of planning, or just with bad planning.
Yeah, lack of planning.
I've seen both. A lot of places have been killed by bad planning. Look at the whole urban renewal debacle back in the 50s and 60s. Urban planners just got on this fad that the only way to revitalize is to tear down everything that's old. And all of these cities all across the country ended up with these vast surface parking lots where there used to be beautiful historic buildings, and now they don't have those restorable assets anymore to revitalize their downtown.
Yeah.
And people were actually paid to do that damage. That planners did more to damage America back in those 2 decades than all the foreign armies ever put together.
Well, I can remember being a kid, everything was downtown. Then it started moving back out to the suburbs. Everybody's I don't want to be downtown. I want to be out here, And now then the trend now is to go back downtown.
Yeah. People are suddenly realizing that spending 2 or 3 hours a day sitting in their car in traffic isn't exactly quality of life.
Well, yeah, I mean, people nowadays, average work day is 10 to 12 hours. Yeah. That's at the job. Then you got 1 hour to 2 hours one way and 1 hour to 2 hours home. Mm-hmm. So that's a long day.
Yep.
I find the young people, though, a lot of what they're doing, well, at least my daughter she's in her 20s. I find that they're not as much of going downtown, but more so doing trail walks and doing that type of thing. It's very, that's in this, of course, area, but we have noticed a trend towards that, and wanting to do things too. Just to go visit's not good enough. They want to get out and do something. I know COVID's been tough with that, but as much as they can, that tends to be the way.
Trails are absolute magic. You look all around North America, actually all around the world, and you'll see cities that are revitalizing just by reconnecting places, you know, with the Rails to Trails program, taking all these defunct rail lines and turning them into corridors. And, you know, Philadelphia is doing it. Atlanta's probably got the biggest one with their Beltline, where they connected all these old railways and created a trail that's like, I don't know, 40, 50 miles long that reconnected all of these isolated, badly planned suburbs. And now it's the most popular place in Atlanta. And all of the property bordering the Beltline has gone way up in value because now everybody wants to live and work next to this huge trail. Same thing happened with the High Line in New York City.
So
Go ahead, Lorianne.
I was just gonna say, I do have to bring this up because we spoke about briefly before we came on. Storm was saying that he's an amateur herpetologist, and I found that really interesting. Can you explain that? I literally did have to look it up.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with herpes. Well, actually it does. They do kind of come from the same root, you know, scaliness. Which is how the disease got its name, you know, the scaly look of the skin. But herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians. And they've been an absolute passion of mine for virtually all of my life.
So how many do you have in your house in aquariums?
Only 7. They all live together. It's one great big 7-foot tall house. They're Solomon Island skinks. They're prehensile tailed, or they're sometimes called monkey tailed skinks. They're about 3 feet long, pure vegetarians, very nice, very communal.
Interesting. So where can our readers, where can our listeners get your books?
Amazon's got them all: Restoration Economy, ReWealth, and Reconomics. And actually, Amazon's got Reconomics on sale right now. Normally $19.95, they got it down at $14.95 right now. And you know, if you want to go to one site that's pretty much got links to everything I do, that would be stormcunningham.com, which is my public speaking site. And if somebody's interested in getting certified as a Revitalization Resilience Facilitator, they can do that at reconomics.org.
Okay, wow. How long is that process?
It depends on how fast they read. It's about 1,000 pages of material they need to read and then take tests on. So, you know, some people have done it in a month and other people take a year.
Okay. Well, wow, that's pretty nice. Yeah.
It's all online, so, you know, there's no hurry. They could take 10 years if they want.
Okay.
Book
Lorianne,
advice are sometimes good, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes, but no, online learning is great. And thank you so much for being here and sharing this. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Thank you.
No, thank you, Laurie, Roy.
Take care.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yep, same here. Take care. Bye-bye.